Horror as a concept has been in media, well, probably since the dawn of man. It's a genre that in the modern day has been quite frankly run into the ground, with every movie studio trying to produce a quick cash grab that inevitably fails. In the late 90s and into the new millennium, horror was at its peak, and in the context of this video, horror games were at their peak. The golden age of console horror was started by Resident Evil, and it hit the industry like crack in the 80s with everyone wanting a slice. Resident Evil introduced survival horror to a wider audience, with the horror being the focus of the game instead of the horror just being an aspect of it. Of course, there were horror games before Resident Evil, like Sweet Home for the Famicom that laid out the groundwork and the ideas for Resident Evil. But Resident Evil was the game that started the age, with it introducing survival horror with limited inventory spaces, puzzles, and the action inside of a mansion that the player had to explore. Many games after Resident Evil will be created with them all taking inspiration from Resident Evil in some way. There were games that would build on these concepts and create something entirely different like the Silent Hill or even Fatal Frame, with these games being cult classics in the modern day. But with there being new survival horror games coming out like candy to capitalize on the Resident Evil hype, there were many games that have been overlooked from the golden age of horror. There are games like Sega's Deep Fear, being their answer to Resident Evil, or games like Hell Knight that mixes horror with the weirdest occult themes that you can even think of. But neither of these games is the focus of today's video. I have a survival horror game that I think is a pretty interesting product from the golden age of horror, with that game being Nanatsu no Hikan Senritsu no Bishou.
クリスタリアと共に我々サブリミターだけの新しい世界を作ろうではないか。
Nanatsu no Hikan Senritsu no Bishou is a pretty different game from what I've covered on the channel so far, but I think that is quite interesting. The title of the game translates roughly to 7 Mansions Ghastly Smile, and I'll just call it Nanakon for the rest of the video as 7 Mansions feels a bit stiff to say. To start, Nanakon is a game that was never officially translated and brought to the West, so we're flying with the Japan exclusive title. But luckily for my sanity and for your viewing experience, there is a fan translation patch that was created by Snowy Aria. So if you do want to give the game a try, you actually can on PC. But first, I should explain that 7 Mansions Ghastly Smile is actually the second game. The first game, just named Nanatsu no Hikan, was an FMV adventure game that was released and produced by Koei for the Sega Saturn in 1996, with the game later being ported to other consoles. The game was headed by Cole Shibusawa as the executive producer. It was a simple 3-disc adventure game that focused on the protagonist Ippei exploring the 7 different mansions on a remote island to solve the mysteries that they hold. From the hour or so of the game that I played, it seemed like a pretty standard adventure game from the time, with the draw of the game being the 3D models and the FMVs in the game. While there apparently were plans on an international release for the game, this never materialized, so if you don't know Japanese, I would say this one is a bit of a no-go. Now with Nanakon itself, it was produced by Koei with the game being released on Dreamcast on January 20th, 2000. Nanakon took a completely different path from its predecessor, with the game diving into survival horror rather than an adventure game. It can be played single or multiplayer with the experience changing between the 2 different routes. This is normally where I would go more into development for the game, but I have to say that it was a challenge to find any proper information on the development. The game doesn't even have a Moby Games page for me to work from. I mean, the first game does, but I guess they just forgot about the sequel. There are plenty of ads and sections in the Dreamcast magazines from the time that give a bit of a look into the game. The development for the game started on the Sega Saturn soon after production of the first game finished, and it was planned to be released quite soon after the first game. That time frame didn't work though, and the project moves to a newer generation of consoles, being the Dreamcast. Like the first game, there were plans to release the game internationally as 7 Mansions Uncanny Grimace, but this didn't happen, with it probably being due to the game's poor sales and it being released on the Dreamcast. From the gameplay itself, it's clear that the game uses many concepts that were laid down by games that came before. The game follows 2 protagonists, being Kei and Reina, in their search to find someone named Professor Ernest that went to an island and hasn't been heard from since. Similar to Resident Evil, the 2 protagonists can be played separately and they have events and scenarios that are unique to their playthrough of the game. If the game is played with 2 players controlling a character each, it is its own story and gameplay experience, with both players needing to cooperate to progress and complete the puzzles in the game. With most of the groundwork for the game laid down, I want to dive into the game further through its gameplay. With the presentation of this game, I'm going to structure the video a bit differently from normal. I will explain parts of the gameplay as they happen, as well as tell the events in the story of the game in the order that the game presents them, with each of the characters having unique scenarios for their gameplay route. But in similar terms, this will be done basically like a walkthrough of the game. From here on, There will be spoilers for the game, so if you're thinking about playing the game yourself, here's your final warning. To start our game, we have a choice of which character to play, as our choice being between Kei Asuka and Reina Shirakawa. Kei is a college student that studies under Professor Ernest, which is the person that the pair are looking for. Despite the way that Kei acts throughout some of the parts of the game, Kei is actually really intelligent. Kei's route through the game is more action focused, with the puzzles in the game being more of a side thing. Like, there are some puzzle answers in Kei's route that the game just flat out gives you. Reina is also a college student who sees Professor Ernest as an uncle-like figure, with Professor Ernest being close with her father. Reina's route is filled with way more puzzles that will require a bit more thinking to find the solutions. Reina has less health and gets less weapons than Kei, but more of the lore is explained in her route. There are slight differences in the events that happen in each route, but other than the different endings, these changes don't hold weight. For this experience of the game, I'll tell both characters' routes and the things that happen in each of their scenarios. To start though, we will follow Reina's route to start the game. After picking a character, we see Reina sleeping and having a nightmare. When she wakes up, Kei scares the shit out of her, but like, dude, seriously, back the hell up. The pair have a conversation about what they're doing and the professor. The pair were on a survey of some kind, and they used the boat to sneak their way to New Russell Island, being the place that Professor Ernest lives on. They discussed how the professor sent Kei a letter saying that his foundation had an emergency on the island that he had to return for, but that also no one has heard from him since then. So the pair are heading to the island to find the professor. When they reach the island, they walk through the trees. Reina eventually becomes exhausted and tells Kei to continue looking for the professor and that she will catch up after a bit of resting. Kei leaves, which is kind of a douche move if you think about it. And after a bit of sitting there, a man finds Reina. This man is Alan, and from first sight, Reina is instantly hooked. After checking her vitals, Alan gives her some water that has been purified on the island called the Meta Water. Alan then leaves Reina and she continues to look for Kei. This is the first scenario that is different depending on the character that you choose. For Kei's route, they are stopped because Kei sprains his ankle. Reina continues to find the professor's house to get help. And then, like what happened with Reina, Alan finds Kei. Alan uses the laser to heal Kei's ankle, and Kei recognizes the laser showing Kei's knowledge. After explaining to Kei about the meta water on the island, Alan disappears and Kei continues to find Reina. Okay, back to Reina's route now. After that FMV, we are thrown straight into the game with Reina. Reina reaches the foundation building where Ernest works, and immediately runs into floors covered with blood. One of the things I really like about this game is the unique introduction to each of the rooms in the new areas. We see the room from different angles, seeing all the items and enemies that are in each room. You only see these the first time you enter a new room in the game, so it doesn't get super annoying over time. When entering, Reina comments on the strong smell of blood, and talk about an understatement. This is the beginning of the game where the character can now be controlled. There are 3 different angles that you can switch your perspective to in the game: third person, first person, and the ceiling lock camera angles from the old Resident Evil games. For this video, I'm just going to stick with the third person point of view behind the character, but the game is definitely playable in first person. The other camera angle, probably not so much of the tank controls. From here, collect the medkit in the corner and then head to the door on the right side of the room. The door is locked, but then the phone rings. The voice asks why Reina is there and tells her that it's dangerous. The voice tells her that she needs to escape and unlocks the door for her. I have to mention here that for some of the voices in the game, I guess the translation team used a Google Translate-like voice to read the lines.
It's too dangerous. Please, hurry and escape. If not, you will become like the guy before you.
It was hilarious the first time I heard it, but it can unimmerse you from the game. But after this phone call, the alarm sounds, so head for the door. Reina notes the location of Ernest's room inside the facility. But before entering, 2 monsters appear in an attempt to attack Reina. With no weapon, just escape through the door. After entering the door, we see Kei running from the monster and locking himself in a part of the building. So, Reina only hears sounds of Kei escaping, with the goal now being to reach Kei. Reina heads into the building with blood everywhere, and she thinks that it might be Kei's. When she walks down the hallway, 2 monsters appear and block 2 of her routes, so she enters the door that is the closest to her. In this room is where I say the gameplay officially begins. There's a lab coat on the table that belongs to someone named Morris Thompson. In the lab coat is a stun gun and the ID card. From here we can enter the menu where everything can be accessed and seen. The UI in the menu is pretty basic, but it's easy to use. At the top is the map where we can see the map of the current area. Next is the items tab where items can be used, inspected, and traded between Reina and Kei. The item inspection is useful for getting clues for the puzzles, and trading is extremely important, but I'll explain that a bit later. The heal button is just a quick way to get to the healing items that character has. The next tab is the equip tab, which is pretty self-explanatory, being where the character can equip the different weapons in the game. The bullet tab can be used to equip different types of ammo and reload guns. At the very bottom you can see Reina's health bar and the number that actually shows how much is actually there. I should say now that Reina is a lot more fragile than Koei, with her having less health, 80 compared to his 120. With that out the way, equip the stun gun, exit the room. We then hear Koei screaming from the other side of the gate. From here you can either run past the monsters or fight them. Running tends to save health and healing items, but many of the enemies early on don't respawn, so I would say just take them out. The combat in the game is extremely simple, with the monsters trying to get close to attack Reina, and Reina able to stun and damage them with the stun gun. The monsters early on are pretty weak and can be stun locked before their attacks. After attacking the monsters in the game, and this includes the bosses, they have invincibility frames and can't be damaged, so back away a bit or time your next attack so they don't get a free extra hit. Deal with the monsters, then head up the stairs. This floor has multiple rooms that later on Reina will use to solve the puzzles in this building. Here you can explore the rooms and find items, with the security room being an important one. In the security room, you can unlock the elevator and release the lock on the first floor gate. In the next room down the hall, there's a computer with text on it. It is a message from Morris, who helped Reina at the beginning. Morris explains that Koei is trapped in the first floor reference room, and that there is a key card next door in the professor's office that can be used to open the door. In the back of this room, there is a laptop they can use to save the game. Unlike horror games like Resident Evil, there isn't a limit to the amount of times you can save, so make sure to save regularly. Head next door to the professor's office, and there are a lot of things here. There's the admissions card for the reference room, a videotape, and an extra medikit. On the desk, there's an old phone and a memo that has a riddle for the lounge password. For now though, we have no clue about that, so let's just move on. Head back to the first floor and go through the gate that was locked earlier. In the first room in this new hallway is the security room. In the security room, there is a file talking about the Valga monster that is strong against physical attacks. After leaving the security room, head to the door on the left hand side and use the admission card to open the door.
よくここが分かったね。
あなたのことはすべてお見通し。
まずい。本当かよ。
After, Morris speaks to them and says that he doesn't know Ernest's location, but that someone named Schneider should. Morris warns them that Schneider is dangerous and that if caught, he will perform human experimentation on them. From here, Koei joins the party and will follow Reina around. Koei has the hunting knife and can also attack monsters. The AI on the companion character is... alright. The extra attacks and later gunshots from Koei do a lot of damage and help out, but the AI tends to let themselves get hit a lot trying to attack monsters even if you run past. Koei also has a health bar that would need to be healed if attacked. Koei's inventory can be accessed by standing near him and entering the menu, so you can change his equipped items and trade items to Koei. To trade items to Koei, you also have to stand near him. This can be a bit annoying if you're trying to heal the companion in a pinch, but for the most part, it's a pretty simple system that is interesting. In the game, you have to make sure that the companion character has healing items and weapons equipped, so it can add a variety to the gameplay. In this library, there's also a creature report file on the table, so grab it for later. When the pair leave the room, they are chased by a monster into another room that also has a monster in that room. Well, so much for that. Defeat the monster and exit the room. From here, the goal is to reach Schneider and exit the building, and to do this you have to pass through the lounge. In the lounge you will need a passcode. The way to get the passcode is written on the memo that was found in Ernest's office. The memo speaks of creature number 3 from the creature report file, and that is the Ripper, being the monsters that have been attacking the pair so far. So head to the experiment body holding room to collect a sample of the monster. Defeat the Ripper in the room and collect the sample. Then head to this room here to analyze the sample and get the gene map. The game walks you through many of the puzzles with Reina, with her saying where you should go and what you should be doing in the conversations. Like here, I was trying to change the gene map to numbers and just confuse myself, but instead of whatever I was trying to do here. Head back to Ernest's office and interact with the phone from earlier, and Reina will turn the gene map code into the lounge code. Also, for those that care, the code is just the number presses to type the gene code. Anyone born after 2010 probably has no idea what I'm talking about. With the lounge code, enter it in the console in the lounge and the room will spin. This will bring the pair to a room that has a bunch of brains floating in vats. On the computer, they find information on Morris, with it revealing that he died in a car accident. Before his death, the Foundation put his brain in the vat and connected it to the technology in the facility. Morris is working against Schneider, and that is one of the reasons why he's helping the pair. Morris tells the pair that Schneider is in the room next door and that he's unlocked it for them. Before leaving the room, there is a med kit in the save spot, so make use of them. When the pair enter the next room, they come face to face with Schneider, and I have to say that Schneider the entire game is a massive creep. You'll see what I mean later, but it's pretty clear now. Schneider explains that he is the chief of the gene laboratory, George Schneider. Schneider explains that he is a sublimiter, a new race of beings that are more superior than humans. He says that the sublimiters plan to obliterate mankind because of the strain and the damage that they have done to the planet. And in the ashes of humanity, the new race will build a paradise. Koei then calls him crazy and Schneider sends a Valga at the pair with him doing this insane head shake. No, seriously, look at him, he's clearly off it. The fight against the Valga is pretty anticlimactic. Just make sure that Koei has the space to attack and then spam him with your stun gun yourself. If you get super low, back away and heal, but overall the fight is super easy. After killing the Valga, Schneider has escaped, so the pair head back to Morris's computer. Morris tells them that he's unlocked the entrance and that they should head to the Macferson Mansion as Ernest's daughter will probably help them there. Reina and Koei head into the mansion. They head inside and there's a med kit at the entrance. Inside the mansion they meet Christy, who is Professor Ernest's daughter, and Sajana Valenko, who goes by Tanya. She is Christy's personal caretaker. Here, the introduction of Christy is a bit weird. It's treated as if this is the first time these characters have met. But from what I played and what I can find, Christy and Koei are supposed to be childhood friends. And Koei knows who Christy is before she even introduces herself. It's not that big of a deal, but it's a little weird in the writing. The pair head to talk to Christy in her room. They ask her if she knows where her dad is, but she hasn't heard from him in days. She explains that he had been at the lab, but he's recently not come home. And then she hands Koei a letter to give her father when they find him. When leaving the room, Tanya stops him and explains that the professor is being held captive by Schneider for some reason. She begs him to save the professor and explains that Alan, Christy's brother, was also searching for Ernest. Tanya then gives Koei a transceiver and tells him to contact her if they learn anything. There are a few rooms in the house that have some items and also pictures and documents that show the relationships within the family. A notable one being Tanya's hatred for Schneider and her love for Alan. But this is all we can do at the mansion for now. When they leave the mansion, they run into Alan, who actually turns out to be the man from the beginning of the game. Reina is beyond infatuated with Alan and introduces the pair. Koei gets straight to business and says that with all the monsters around, they need to be looking for the professor, and quick. Alan knows that Schneider has to be the one behind all of this and says that they need to split up to cover more ground. Is it just me or has nobody seen a horror movie? In most horror games, there's a reason why the characters are split up. Like, you know, a giant 18-wheeler coming through the city at 100 miles an hour. But in this game, they do so willingly. He wants them to check out the Meta Water Control Center and the Environmental Tech Lab. So the pair split up to search through one place each. This is the first major scenario difference depending on the character that is chosen, with them exploring the respective area by themselves. I'm going to explain both routes in order as they happen, as there are some things and events that only take place on one route. When they decide to split up, Alan gives Reina a laser pen, which is her gun weapon for the game, and Koei gives her a piece of candy. Haven't said anything up until this point, but Reina is really into candy. It's almost like an addiction. After splitting, Reina comes to the Meta Water Control Center. At the entrance, she runs into a man named Ricky, who has a really upbeat, carefree personality. Ricky is a bit creepy, but I think he's a good guy deep down. After introductions, Ricky gets a piece of candy from Reina and explains that he rode a boat into the sunset and ended up on the island. He leaves quickly after dodging Reina's questions, and this leaves her dumbfounded. Here, we play solo Reina. Right at the entrance, there is a note that has a password on it, so make sure to grab that. The Meta Water Control Lab itself is pretty small, but there is a lot that can be learned here. The laser pen is probably the strongest weapon in the game, with it just disintegrating regular Reapers and it taking chunks out of bosses' health in the game. The game gives a pretty generous amount of ammo for the laser pen, so if you just use it even somewhat sparingly, but from the entrance, head left and enter the door on your right. This is the generator room, and using the generator manual in the locker, you can turn the power back on, which just requires you turning all the switches to up. That's pretty much it for this room, but we'll be back in it in a bit. You can loop around the square hallways to the next door. There's a lift down, but we'll ignore that for now. This new room is the electrical supply room, and a lot can be done here. In here, Reina can use the computer, which is also connected to the environmental tech lab that Koei is at, but the computer is also connected to the Foundation's database. With the computer, Reina can search up buildings and people in the game to learn about each of them. This is needed for a puzzle, so let me lore dump real quick. First, from Ernest's file, we learned that he was the one that established the Macferson Foundation to study artificial genes. The file explains that after the death of Christy, he went to Japan and his friend Shirakawa begged him to teach at a university. Weird though. Christy sure didn't seem dead to me. Wonder what that's about, but This does explain how the pair met Ernest. Reina's father was close with Ernest, with that being the Shirakawa in question, and Kei is studying under him. With this, I have to explain my biggest question in this game. Some of the computer files are locked behind a level 2 password, and I can say I have absolutely no clue what this password is. I have searched the internet for hours trying to find this passcode, but no dice. If anyone knows what the password is or how to get it, please leave it down in the comments and I'll pin it. This is one of the only things in the game that I couldn't figure out, and I feel like some awkward plot connections in the game could be answered pretty simply with this. But we'll come back to this in just a sec. In the corner of the room, there's a handgun and a note. The handgun, I would say, is probably like the third best weapon in the game. The damage is good and the ammo for the gun is given out a lot, and it can be given to Kei later for extra damage. That's almost everything in his room, but let's explore the rest of the place. When the lift is taken down, we are brought to this huge underground area with a large machine in the middle. Inside, Reina finds Alan. Alan hasn't found out anything about Ernest, but explains to Reina that he has come down here to look at the metawater machine. The giant machine that they're in purifies polluted water on Earth, with the water on Earth apparently being heavily polluted in this world. Alan laments that the Earth originally didn't need this, and he leaves. In the room, there are multiple capsules, with one of them having Christy's name on it. There is a save spot, but for the most part, that's all that's in his room for now. Continue on and down another lift. At the bottom, Reina finds a stack of paper and a locked door that can't be passed, so let's head back up to the computer room for now. Back at the computer room, Kei sends a message asking if she's found the professor, and she responds no. After this, Kei asks for the file for the life detection system. To do this, go to the send command in the computer and type H for help. With the explanation, Reina just needs the serial number for the target computer. So exit the computer completely and interact with it again, and she will ask Kei for the serial number. While waiting for Kei to respond, use the paper from earlier. Reina can print the log reports with the printer that is next to the computer. These log reports have some things that can be searched on the computer, like Schneider, Tanya, Alan, the metawater, and the gene building. There's also some paper that will tell where certain items are, but I'll explain those files in just a second. When Kei sends the computer serial, use that, and use the send command to send the file. After this, he tells Reina that there is no sign of Ernest there and to meet him at the environmental tech lab entrance. So Reina heads there, but there are some things that can be done now to reduce backtracking, but for now, let's talk about the files from earlier. Some of these files have level 2 locks on them, so expect half stories here. For the genetic building that was explored at the beginning, it was built by Ernest's foundation. They wanted to use science to make the Earth a better place, and it became the base of their gene research, with Schneider leading the project. There's not much info in Alan, Tanya, and Schneider's files, and I think that the missing level 2 information would actually piece some things together. The main focus though is Christy's file. In Christy's file, we learned that when she was 10, she almost died of an illness, and Alan put her in a cryosleep to save her. 3 years after being put in a cryosleep, she was brought back to life to try the latest gene therapy, but it didn't work, and she only has a few years left to live. With the incomplete state of the life support systems at the time, her cell bonds were weakened, so Ernest and the Foundation have been using artificial genes to keep her alive. The last search is the metawater, but it's just info that's already been stated. With Reina heading to the lab, let's discuss what Kei's been up to. Kei heads to the abandoned environmental tech lab to search for the professor. This area isn't complicated at all, with the puzzles being super simple for Kei's route. Just by exploring the rooms, Kei will find things like the gas detector, a safety suit, plenty of med kits, and a handgun for him. On the second floor of the building in the conference room, Kei runs into Ricky. Once again, Ricky chooses the weirdest way to introduce himself. After introductions, Ricky leaves the room flashing the candy that Reina gave him earlier. On the conference room table, there is a block of clay that is important for something later, and the handgun. In the corner of the room, there is a videotape player. Kei can use this to play the videotape that was found earlier in Ernest's office, only in his route, I think. This tape shows Schneider presenting the bioweapon Crystalia to the members of the lab staff. He preaches like a cult leader, rallying them behind making a new world for the subliminal race. But with that out the way, I want to take a bit of a break to talk about the sound design of the game. The game itself doesn't really feature music that much itself, with most of the sound being atmospheric ambiance kind of tracks. So most of the game you are hearing the sounds of the characters' footsteps and the sounds of them interacting with doors and other items. This sound design isn't anything innovative, but it does engross the player into the game and the world. For example, with the lack of sounds when the Reapers and the other monsters are welling through the halls in the areas, it does bring a slight chill. The other thing with the sound design is that no matter how far you are from the monsters, you always hear them the same. This does create the thought of, oh, where's the monster? But it also takes the fear of not knowing if a monster is in the same room as you, as you'll hear him when entering. You can still get snuck up on by the monsters. This does take a lot of the potential jump scares out of it. Also, another small thing, unlike Reina, Kei understands what most of the machines in the lab are, and this is probably to show Kei's intelligence that he gained from studying in college under Professor Ernest. But after exploring a bit, there is a machine that can detect life signatures in the building, but he needs the operation manual. But back in the security room, Ricky is now there, and after saying that he's all out of candy, he leaves the room. While Ricky was in the room, he unlocked the gate, so a new part of the building is now open. This new area of the building has all the pieces to complete the puzzle with the building. The first room has a computer that is connected to the Metawater Control Center, so he messages Reina. This is basically the same conversation that Reina had in her route, but here, Kei sends her the serial number that is written on this memo next to the window. While waiting for Reina to respond, explore the rest of the building. In the next room, there is a giant plant monster, so equip the safety suit and it's not a problem anymore. In the room, there is a locked locker that will need to be returned to later. In the room at the very end of the hall, there is a life search system manual. There's a memo in this room here that has half the shed passcode. Earlier, Reina found the other half at the entrance of the Metawater Control Center. In the room on the second floor at the end of the hall, Kei needs to wear the safety suit as there's poisonous gas in the room. In the room, Kei finds a periodic table and a memo stuck on a bookshelf. With the periodic table, we can get the code for the locker. Use the atomic numbers of the elements in Halabi. Inside the locker is a bomb fuse that we won't be using until later, but it's good to get it now. Go back and interact with the life search machine, and Kei needs the file to run it. So go back to the computer and ask Reina for the file if you haven't already. File now, head back to the life search system, and with the machine, Kei finds out that the professor isn't there. So head back to the computer and Kei will tell Reina to head there. Before ending this part, I should say that most of the documents in the tech lab were about the damage that humans have done to the planet, with there being papers on climate change, deforestation, and the like. When Reina gets to the tech lab, they decide to contact Tanya with the receiver, and she tells them that the shed hasn't been searched. The pair head to the shed, and with the 2 pieces of the shed passcode memo, they are able to activate the shed elevator. I recommend saving here as this is when the story picks up a bit. The shed elevator brings them to the new Russell Lake station. There are a few Reapers, but they can be handled pretty easily. After that, they take the monorail to the microbiology lab. There is a room next to the monorail that inside the pair watch a video of Schneider bringing Ernest into the microbiology lab. On the computer, Schneider left a memo saying that he's holding the professor hostage, and that they will need the isolation cell key from the Metawater Control Center to free him. This key is only needed in Reina's route as Kei will free the professor in a different way. He ends the memo saying that he's in the clone lab that is past the microbiology lab. The pair begins to leave when the transceiver starts to go off. In the transceiver call, we hear the Macferson Mansion being broken into with Christy calling for Kei, so they head for the Macferson Mansion. At the mansion, they find no one there with Christy's room being destroyed. They defeat the Ripper in the room and find Christy's pendant on the floor. There's a wiretap on the bed and the room seems to have been searched through by a human, but with no other clues they leave. But before leaving, search the mansion and there is now an unlocked door on the first floor. Here, there's a shotgun for Kei. From here on the Reina route, head back to the Metawater Control Center. Here the capsules need to be opened to get the cell key. With the help function in the capsule control, we can give the way to unlock each of the capsules. For the first 2, you just have to type the command and then Christy and Ernest's birthdays respectively. To open the final capsule, you have to flip the switches in order that is given. After flipping the switches correctly, Reina will say that the capsule should be unlocked. Head down below and get the items from each of the capsules. There is a cell key that is needed and the Tony control disc that is also needed. With these items, head back to the microbiology lab. Entering the microbiology lab is slightly different for the routes. Reina will use the Tony control disc from a second ago to make this robot let them in. In Kei's route, there is a tape recorder by the reception desk, and using the tape recorder, head back to the environmental lab and record Schneider's voice. Head back and use the recording on the robot and we'll let the pair in. When trying to enter, the pair have to be scanned by the computer and then put their safety suits on. For the microbiology lab, the place is contaminated due to a virus, so the pair have to be suited up the entire time they are in the building. If they are attacked, the suits rip and they become infected. Getting infected just makes this lab take longer than if you weren't infected. The lab isn't that big with there being 4 main rooms. In one room, there's a save point, med kits, and a microbiology report, which we'll be using in a second. In the report, we get the security code, which is the first letter of some of the kids' names, with the number being the letter placed in the alphabet, like A being 1 and so on. The kids' names are the ones in the 2 containers to the left. In the next room, there is an office with a robot. On the table is Alhazar's notes that explains that the virus in the lab is the Buldul virus. The virus is highly deadly and was spread through the lab. After picking up the notes, the alarm is activated by someone. and that can be turned off by entering the code gotten through the kids' names. I have to complain hard here. There are like 2 ways for the suits to get ripped. When you exit the room, there are 2 Valga there, and you can kill them by activating the CO2 system suffocating them. If you're not fast enough or you try to fight them, you will get infected. But this isn't the way Kei got affected my first time I played. After deactivating the alarm, I ran to pick up this document, and Kei decided to pick a fight with the robot and got infected by getting hit. Then I got Reina infected by the Valga outside. I didn't know that this would make it take far longer, but I was pissed when I realized. After dealing with the alarm and the Valga, you can explore the rest of the lab. In the next room, there's a tape recording, and from listening to it, we find out that Schneider was the one who took the Badul virus and released it into the lab. Schneider fled the lab after, so the pair decided to make their way to the clone lab. This is one of the things that wasn't translated in any way in the patch.
ブドゥールウイルスは君にしては秀逸だ。今後はこれに関して結成ともども全て私が管理する。
とんでもない。それは困る。
But the character's dialogue after basically sums it up. In this room, there's an elevator down that will lead to the clone lab, but if you're infected, you won't be let through. If you're not, you just have to run back to the beginning of the lab and grab this jug of disinfectant, and then place it here, and after being scanned, you can go through to the clone lab. Simple, right? If you're infected, you have to sneak into the clone lab. To get into the clone lab, you have to unlock 2 disposal crates to get inside and get taken to the clone lab. One key is in this room here, and to get through the door, you have to take the suit off, but you're already infected, so it doesn't even matter. To get the other key, you have to ride the elevator up to the 2nd floor, and then enter from the bottom. Here at the bottom, interact around in the elevator and you'll get the 2nd key. After this, take the jug of disinfectant and place it in the machine. From here, go to the crates that the keys unlock, and the characters will get in them, and they will be taken to the clone lab. This is really annoying to have to do, so just try not to get infected. Also, if you're infected, you stay infected until you find the serum later in the clone lab. After getting through either way, you can take the suit off and be fine from here. Also, I forgot to mention that while you wear the suits, you can't use any of the guns in the game, only the character's melee weapons. The clone lab starts the last part of the game with the story about to ramp up heavily. If you're infected, the pair talk about finding Schneider so that they can get the serum. The clone lab isn't extremely big, but a lot goes down here. There are these burnt zombies that honestly are just best to avoid. They eat the melee hits and the handgun bullets, and at this point, you're gonna want to try to save as many laser pen batteries and shotgun shells for the bosses that are coming up. From the entrance to the clone lab, head left, dodge the burnt zombie, and the pair find Schneider. In this FMV, Schneider is incredibly creepy, saying that if they want the serum, Reina would have to give him her body. Now he probably means for experiments, but bro, you say that with this face? He destroys the serum in front of them, and somehow despite this, he turns out to be a hologram? So how did he hold and destroy you know what? It's too late in the game. Who cares? Who cares? After they find the elevator card in the room, it can be used to open the elevator in the main room. There's also a computer here that can be used to access the Foundation's database. Also, there's a door coming from here that has an FMV that shows the room that is powering everything. This doesn't come back up at all later, so I have no idea why this was even given an FMV. But use the elevator card and continue down. After going down a hallway, the pair finds Tanya playing the organ in the chapel filled with monster bodies. Tanya turns around and with the red eyes gains control over Reina and Kei. Like, how is she even doing this? I genuinely have no clue. Maybe this was something that was explained in the 2nd level of her file, but you know, I can't access it. Tanya takes Reina away, and when Reina wakes up, Tanya is trying to inject her with some kind of fluid. Tanya says that it was someone's will to turn her into a sublimiter. So this fluid turns people into sublimiters? I guess? This is also something that's never explained or brought back up in the game. For this latter part of the game, there are many things like this that come up and are never explained, that maybe the level 2 access could help with. But right before Tanya can inject Reina, Kei rushes in and then Schneider appears. Schneider attempts to take them all out by filling the room with poisonous gas. For this room, we actually control Tanya. Interact with Reina to get the laser battery from her, and Tanya will use the laser cutter to get through the window. In the next room, they tell Tanya that Schneider took Christy, and they ask her if she knows about the Badul serum. She says that the serum should be somewhere around the room that they're in. After this, Tanya says goodbye and is genuinely not seen for the rest of the game. I'm not joking, nothing about what she just tried to do is ever brought back up. I have a few ideas, but I'll try to explain them towards the end of the game. Inside the doctor's room, the pair finds the 2 vials of serum next to the Guardian report. From here, the pair head back to the elevator entrance where the other path is now unlocked. But before that, head back into the chapel and there is a right key card on the altar. There's also a capsule bullet that I'm pretty sure can be used to make special bullets, but I never got around to actually doing it and really didn't even need to. But back to the other path. They find Ricky on the ground. Ricky hits on Reina a bit and explains that Ernest is up ahead being guarded by a dangerous creature. They finally get Ricky to reveal who he really is. He is a special agent that was sent on a mission to destroy the island. But Ricky was hurt badly, so he gives the pair the bombs to plant around the clone lab. He also gives Reina a memo that can be used to contact him later. Now in the next room, there is a giant monster that needs you to be prepared, so don't walk in there in the state that I did. For this, and the rest of the bosses in the game, have Reina using the laser pen and Kay using the handgun or the shotgun. Try to keep distance from the boss and heal when needed. But other than that, the fights are quite simple. After taking out the Guardian, get the left key card on the console, and this is where the routes differ slightly. In Reina's route, you can just use the isolation key to free Ernest. In Kay's route, interact with the locker in the corner and he will find the bomb manual in it. And with it, Kay will combine the clay and the bomb fuse from earlier to make a plastic explosive. Kay uses this explosive to open the door while Reina just uses the key. Either way, open the cell and finally find Ernest. They run to Ernest and Kay hands him the letter from Christy while also telling him that she's missing. Ernest says that the Code Zero plan must be underway then. He explains that it's a plan to eliminate mankind using Christy. Ernest sends them away but says that he needs to get the EM artificial genes, so the pair goes ahead of him. In this last part of the clone lab, the pair needs to plant these 3 bombs that Ricky gave them earlier. One needs to be planted in the doctor's room from earlier, this room where they first met Schneider, and the last is in the command room. Before heading to the command room, I do recommend saving at the placing of the last 2 bombs. To get to the command room, use the right and the left key cards from earlier to unlock this big door. Head up the stairs and the pair enter the command room. In the command room, Schneider commends them on making it this far, and he is creepily just standing behind them and Reina backs up into him. I'm telling you, this man is an absolute creep the entire time. He then transforms into his monster form and attacks the pair. Now when the fight begins, I don't know why they designed it like this, he is guaranteed a free hit. When the fight starts, he is right in front of you and there is nothing you can do to dodge the hit. So heal up right before the fight and just eat the punch. This fight is very similar to the Guardian fight from a bit ago, but honestly, Schneider's easier, just a bit more tankier. Have Reina using the laser pen and Kay using the shotgun, with the laser pen being your best friend for this fight. Keep your distance and make sure he chases you and then shoot him while he's walking towards you. Remember though, wait to shoot until he moves again or he'll just eat your ammo in his invincibility frames. This fight is quick if you follow those steps though. After defeating Schneider, he will drop a ring, use the console to open the main gate and then plant the final bomb. Set the bomb to explode and then run out the main gate. You get plenty of time to escape here. I'm guessing they thought people would place the bombs after setting the detonator. But after escaping, the pair watch the lab explode. But then they see a flash. But then they see a fortress rising from the water, being the Ark. To get to the Ark, head back to the Meta Water Control Center and travel to the door with the engravings from before. Use the ring on the door and it will open. Here, we have reached the very last part of the game with the pair exploring the Ark. The inside of the Ark has a perfect atmosphere for the last bit of the game with the walls looking like flesh is growing on them. The Ark is a decent challenge for the final part of the game, with it differing a bit depending on the route. In Reina's route, there are less enemies, with there only being one major puzzle at the end, but I'll explain that in just a second. In Kay's route, there's a lot more enemies that are quite tanky, so use the shotgun and keep the laser pen with Reina. Make sure to save regularly here, you don't want to die and have to restart. But back to the story. When entering the Ark, they hear a loud clang and head towards the sound. In the room, they come across the giant bioweapon that Kay saw in the video earlier, and Reina comments how it looks like Christy a bit. A triangle appears and it shows Alan's face. Alan explains that the bioweapon, the Crystalia, was created using Christy's DNA and is controlled by her will. The bioweapon is a being created by nuclear fission and ND lasers, creating an incredible amount of energy, with this being the weapon that the sublimiters plan to use to destroy mankind. Alan then reveals that this was all his plan, with him being the leader of the sublimiters, which, you know, big surprise there. Alan monologues about humanity's greed being the reason why they have destroyed the planet. Reina calls him crazy and asks where Christy is, but the object just floats away. With this, the pair go back to exploring the Ark. In the next room, there's a giant baby head attached to the wall. In Reina's route, this is a hologram that you can walk into and interact to reveal the door. This is not the same with Kay's route. It is a monster that has to be killed to progress, and it's quite tanky and does damage the pair, so dump the shotgun and laser pen into it. After, there are some burnt zombies that should just be run past to preserve ammo for the later bosses. In Reina's route, they come to a room with a bunch of consoles. At one of the consoles, the lift can be activated. Ignore the elevator for just a second. From here, you can continue forward with one door having a mini baby face that was annoying to hit, honestly. There's a machine in the following room that has a save point, so save and continue to the next room. In the next room is a command room. Deal with the monsters and continue. After, Alan appears and tells the pair to give up, as Christy's cells have already been taken over. Alan explains that Christy got sick and was on the verge of dying due to drinking bad water. He tried to save her life, but he couldn't fully heal her, and her body has a short clock that will soon fail. He continues with the mankind destroying nature and causing it all to happen, so they have to be annihilated speech. Reina pleads for him to stop, but he doesn't listen. He says that Crystalia will activate at sunrise and leaves. Ernest then calls out for the pair. He is next to Christy, so the pair head back into the Ark to reach him. When going back into the command room, the Ark system says that there is an unidentified flying object flying towards the Ark. Here, the Ark is about to be bombed by the government, and Reina has 6 minutes to stop it from happening. This is done differently in each route, but let's continue with Reina's for now. Morris begins talking through her console. He tells him that the Crystalia is connected to Christy via brainwaves, so if the pair can wake her up, they can stop the bioweapon launch. After telling them this, Alan cyber attacks Morris and he dies. Head back to the room with all the consoles. In this very corner of the room is a machine that Reina can use to contact Ricky. She tells Ricky to call off the strike on the Ark, and he somehow does. The Vanguard does shoot the Ark once though, but Ricky does have the strike called off. From here, make sure to heal up and prepare, then take the elevator up. In this room there's a golem. It's a boss monster that's super tanky, but follow the strategies from the other boss fights in the game and you're good. Go through to the next door and we are brought back to the main area. Here a pipe fell down from the Ark being hit with the missile, so travel across the pipe to reach the other side. On the other side, ride the lift up to reach Ernest and Christy. At the top, they discuss trying to wake her up to stop the bioweapon launch. Ernest says that it should be possible, but that it will be difficult to pull off. Alan then appears again and says that it's useless and that they should give up. After this, you were given a minute to try to wake Christy up. To do this, speak to both Kay and Ernest a few times, and then they will tell you to give Christy her pendant. When they show Christy the pendant, she doesn't react and it seems like the Crystalia will launch. The pair continue to plead for Christy to wake up, and at the last moment, she does. She explains to Alan that she does not hold any grudges and that she does not hate anything, with her having a life where she was able to meet nice people. Ernest explains to Alan that Christy doesn't hold any hatred towards mankind, but Alan is not satisfied with this and attempts to perform a forced launch, but the energy backfires and shocks the hell out of him with it. After though, we abruptly cut back to Macferson Mansion where Reina and Kay are preparing to head back home. Here we see the aftermath of everything. Ernest is determined to continue his research to help people, and Christy is back home. Alan then runs to Christy, but his personality is different. The shock that he received caused him to get brain damage and reverted him back to the mind of a child. With everything basically wrapped up, the pair get back on the boat and head back to Japan, where they share a kiss and are teased by Ricky. Now, this is only one of the endings in the game, and I will explain all of them, but let's finish up Kay's route through the Ark. After killing the babyface monster, the Ark is pretty similar to Reina's route, but there are a lot more monsters. When the pair reaches the command room, there's actually a guardian there that has to be defeated. After, we see the same FMV of a line saying that Christy got sick. After that, the alarm for the government starts again. Morris tells Kay to activate the Ark's defense systems by pressing a console on the other side of the room. That's how Kay just easily avoids the bombing. Go back out the door you just left and the pipe will be there for the pair to cross. After crossing, they enter a room with a floating triangle and a golem. Deal with the golem and interact with the triangle, and the locks have all been released. Now you can go back to the door that was locked earlier in Kay's route to reach the lift and get to Ernest and Christy. This plays out the same as it did before in the Reina route. Now for the bad endings. If you fail to stop the bombing of the Ark, you get to see the island destroyed. The other one you get from not waking Christy up in time, which shows the launch of the Crystalia. Also, I have got to say that the subliminal goal was to destroy humans and make a paradise, right? So how the hell is Alan or anybody surviving this? For the alternative endings, these are the hardest in the game to get. These endings have either Reina or Kay getting with the respective Macferson. To get Reina's ending, you have to speak to Alon at 2 points in the game to get certain FMVs. For the first FMV, Reina needs to read Alon's letter. To do this, she has to meet Alon in the capsule room in the control center. Then go back to the Macferson Mansion and interact with the desk in the study to read the letter. But you have to do this before contacting Kay with the computer. For the second FMV, you have to enter the study when the pair comes back to the mansion when Christy is attacked. After this, play the game like normal, but the scene with Alon trying to perform a forced attempt would be different. After that scene, Reina decides to stay on the island with Alan and Kay returns alone. I gotta say that I really don't like this ending, but it is what it is. I think Kay's alternative ending is easier to get, I think. For the first FMV, when Kay gets to the tech lab, immediately go back to the Macferson Mansion. In this FMV, Kay listens to Christy sing while playing the piano, and after learning a bit about her, he leaves. Now for the next FMV. I for the life of me could not get this second FMV to trigger. Editor JGR here. I was gonna go into a whole rant about how I couldn't figure out how to get the second FMV to trigger and this and yada yada. But literally, this is all you have to do. This is from Punchy on YouTube. He makes videos kind of similar to mine where he just does random gameplay, so massive shout outs to him. He bought the strategy guide for the game as the same as me. He could barely find any information on the game. But basically, all the requirements to get both of the endings are on screen now. Me, instead of actually going back and reusing the transceiver, I just kept meeting Ricky and going back and it wouldn't trigger. Yeah, that's all. Thanks. Also, strategy guide might help with the level 2 passcode, but I'll get into that in just a second. But that's all the main endings of the game wrapped up. There's still a lot of questions left with the game that leave me puzzled and wanting answers. The primary thing being the access to the level 2 and 3 files. I really think that the access to these files will bring a lot of the awkward story pieces together. I said level 3 access as well. While inside the computer, I tried inputting different codes that I thought would work for the level 2 access, and a thought crossed my mind. What if I searched up the term sublimiters in the computer and came up with 3 levels of files? In all the guides and gameplay that I saw trying to get the lore and the endings for this is the first time that I think this one has been brought up. Information for the game is extremely sparse, so trying to find information is really hard. But I'm stuck wondering what's even on these files. The level 1 file is pretty telling though, and actually gives a little more insights into the sublimiter than the actual main story of the game does. Sublimiters are humans that have obtained superhuman qualities. While on the outside they look human, they can transform into monsters that have increased power and senses. As for another loose end, the sublimiter liquid. Tanya was going to turn Reina into a sublimiter with an injection, probably because Alan wanted her to. From the stuff in Tanya's room, it's pretty easy to tell that she's in love with online, but it doesn't explain her hypno powers. There are many small things like that are not explained in the game, but I think that's what intrigues me so much about it. Nanatsu no Hikan Senritsu no Bishou is a really weird game, but I think that weirdness is one of the best parts of the game. It was released in the golden age of horror and played its role as another Resident Evil-like game. The game obviously took many different ideas and concepts like the dual protagonist from RE2, but it also took some liberties and experimented a bit. The 2-player co-op route in the game was a very nice addition that added to the game overall, and built on the dual protagonists and routes that started in Resident Evil 2. While the environments themselves were not super unique, the atmosphere of the game works perfectly to establish that old school horror vibe. I'm not the type to get scared often, but there were a few times that the monsters snuck up on me and gave me a decent scare. The enemy variety is just alright. The basic enemies are the Reapers and the boss monsters are decently creative, but nothing exactly stands out. And I'm pretty sure everyone can agree that the Valga is just a weaker licker from Resident Evil. I think the biggest draw of this game is the mystery. I mean this in the mysteries within the game, and also the mystery that surrounds the game itself. Meaning the concept and ideas presented in the game are half explained or shrouded behind the passage of time. But even more than that is that damn level 2 password. The whole point of me originally making this video was I found another weird game that I wanted to talk about, and after playing, I am left with hundreds of questions. So finally, let me gesture to you. If you think that this game is interesting, give it a shot. It's a short game with both routes in the game being around 4 to 5 hours each. The level 2 access codes and the FMV triggers will probably keep me awake for days though, but maybe someone watching this video can figure it out and shed some light over here. But with all that out the way, once again, thank you for watching me ramble about another game. With this one being a 26-year-old game this time that left me intrigued, and maybe it also left you intrigued as well. The next video should be out relatively quickly, with it possibly being a bigger one, but we'll see. Once again though, thank you for watching.